At their lowest points of the season, the Mariners have at least been able to stop the bleeding before things get really out of hand. Hopefully, today was yet another example of that as they end a nightmare road trip with a win down in Tampa.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Wednesday, June 26, 2024. This is Tidy Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners postgame show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Mariners beat the Rays 5-2 this afternoon, ending a 3-game losing streak and closing out an otherwise terrible road trip with some much needed good vibes. Certainly makes that long flight back to Seattle a lot better than, the alternative. So before we get into all of that, shout out to our title sponsor today, Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals by calling 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on. That's LOCKDON. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. I think we have to start here with Trent Thornton. Let's give Trent Thornton his flowers, right? Because he was asked to do something pretty remarkable today. He's not expecting to pitch in this game, as it progresses, as it becomes clear, like Andres Munoz is going to get the ninth. And Munoz has obviously been nails all year long. So you expect him to be able to get the job done, right? And then he's not able to, right? He looks off. Something looks off with Andres. What's going on with Andres, right? So the dugout makes a quick call to the bullpen. They're trying to get Thornton ready very quickly because Scott Service decides after Munoz faces the minimum, he hits Isaac Paredes to cap things off, loads the bases. I got to go get him. And so Thornton, with very little preparation, is asked to come in and handle a bases loaded no-out jam. Now, with a 4-run lead, of course, that makes things a little bit easier to breathe. But just a situation that could really, really get off the rails there. And Thornton handled it masterfully. He gets 2 huge ground balls. One of them scores a run. Who cares about that? You take the out in that situation. And then the game-ending double play, gets out of it for his first career save. So props to Trent Thornton. That was massive because that thing gets out of hand there. You end that road trip with the way that it had gone by blowing a 4-run lead. Woof. So what was going through your head there during that inning, Colby?
Yeah, I think obviously concern, first and foremost. Not only is, Andres Munoz not even near the strike zone for most of the day. He only threw, 6 of his 18 pitches for strikes. But we also saw some 93, 94 on the radar gun. That's not even within the realm of, outcomes for Munoz when he's feeling good. And obviously we know about the back thing. So that makes you worried. And so, you're not feeling great about it. Thankfully, Scott was not messing around there. I think the real, the real scary thing he could have done is he could have gone out there and just tried to, let's see if Andres can work through this. Thornton's, been used quite a bit on this road trip. And so maybe it's, hey, he just got up. Like, do we really want to rush him to get ready? And then, let's see if Munoz can get through this. And he doesn't. He goes right to him. Thankfully, Paredes had kind of a long at bat. He fouled off a couple pitches, gave Thornton a bit longer to get warm. But yeah, I think watching that, you're just thinking about how this whole road trip has gone, and you're just, kind of expecting disaster to strike. But thankfully, Scott had the quick hook, really his only move, but he made it. And Thornton goes in there and throws 12 pitches, 9 strikes, and just, goes right after these guys and gets a couple of ground balls, which is huge because, it's bases loaded. He leaves something in the middle of the plate. It gets airborne. It's really, really thin. It's really shallow down those lines. And it only takes one bad pitch to completely change the game. So, big credit to Thornton for going out there and throwing quality strikes For the most part, he threw a little bit of everything. You know, he threw 12 pitches total, 5 different pitches in that 12 though. So he was out there mixing and matching and just kind of trying to really pitch his way out of that jam. And he was able to do it. So, you know, obviously we're going to be looking at Munoz over the next couple days. That's going to be a bit of a worrisome issue. But you know, for the most part, you're just concerned about Munoz's health, and you're happy that Thornton was able to come in and do such a good job and not let that thing snowball into what would have been a disastrous loss to cap your road trip.
Right. And it would have been their first time getting swept this season. But still, you know, we're almost in July and they haven't been swept by a team yet this year. And it goes back to what we've talked about, you know, when just kind of assessing how the Mariners are in the position that they're in right now. They've been able to stop the bleeding. So hopefully this is another example of that, because you have a massive homestand coming up. You got 2 teams that are tough matchups for you, and then you got a Blue Jays team that's trying to save its season right after that. You know, I know they haven't been playing particularly well, but you know that they're aware of the rumors. They're aware that, you know, that whole era of baseball in Toronto could get blown up if they don't start playing better here pretty soon. And so they're going to be a very motivated ball club. So that's going to be a really, really difficult homestand. But, you know, look, at the end of the day, the Mariners, you know, they go 3-6 on the road trip. That's not good, right? 4-6 over your last 10. That's not good either. It's also not necessarily a disaster, right? But it's like we talked about yesterday when we had Ben Ranieri on the show. It looks worse because of external factors because, well, look at what the Astros are doing right now. They've essentially cut your 10-game lead in half, right? But this is what we've talked about when it comes to the lead that the Mariners have built. It's not about, you know, let's, you know, call it right now. Let's call the AL West for the Mariners right now here in the middle of June. No. It's not about that, right? It's about banking wins so you can survive stretches like this. Because look, good teams, they're going to go through this. They're going to go through rough stretches. I mean, hell, the last year's World Series champion Rangers were painfully mediocre for the entire second half of last year, right? But because they banked so many wins in the first half, they were able to survive it. And then they got hot for a couple of weeks and won a championship. Right? So that's why it's so important, or why it was so important to build the lead that they did, because we already know what the flaws are of this team. We know how unsustainable the roster currently constructed is. But banking those wins, can't take those away, allows you to survive that until you can fix some of the issues that your roster has. Now, are they going to be able to fix everything? No, like we've talked about on the show. But can they add to the roster, make it a little bit better, and be able to manage some of the other issues that they have? Possibly. And that's all you can really ask for at this point. They're a very flawed team. That is what it is. They're going to be a very flawed team, no matter who they add. Unless guys start playing a lot better, right?
Yep.
And you know who we're talking about specifically with that. We don't need to go over that again. But hopefully, again, this stops the bleeding. They're able to get back on track. And hopefully they can play some better ball against Minnesota, Baltimore, and Toronto on this upcoming homestand. They need to. So let's talk about the rest of what happened today in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners postgame show is brought to you by eBay Motors and LinkedIn. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Again, that is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes, or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date, first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/locked on. That is linkedin.com/LOCKDON for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/locked on and get started. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. The Mariners are off tomorrow, but they are back at it on the weekend against the Minnesota Twins at home, which is nice to be back at T-Mobile Park. You can catch all the action on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. So, pretty decent day for the offense, I would say. It didn't start off well. They looked horrible against Ryan Pepio for the first half of this game. But once Pepio left this game, offense started to figure it out. Cal Raleigh with the big 3-run home run that gives the Mariners the lead. They were down 1-0 for a while in this one. That was set up by a big walk by Julio, which, Julio deserves to be criticized for how he played on the course of this road trip, but that was a nice moment from Julio. Tough at bat for him. Saw some fouled off a couple of tough sinkers, didn't really get anything in the strike zone, and was able to work a 9-pitch walk to extend the inning and set up that home run by Cal. And then, hey, the Mariners actually played some add-on, which again made the that 9th inning a little easier for Trent Thornton to handle. And eliminated some of the anxiety that would have been there, had it been just 3-1. So, JP Crawford with the 2-run single later on in the game. So that was nice to see. Again, pretty inconsistent performance by the bats, but they scored 5, right? That's good enough to win most nights. So what did you think about the offense today? Just any thoughts that you have on the rest of the game in general? We'll talk about George Kirby here in a moment as well.
Yeah. Offense still struck out 13 times today. Obviously, that's not going to cut it. 6 of those were Rojas and more. So, not a great night, not a great day for the offense. Obviously, they didn't have a ton of hard hit balls either. They struck out a ton. They drew 4 walks, which, not terrible in a 9-inning game. But, offense wasn't very good. But they scored 5. So. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you do it. As long as you score 4 or 5, you're going to have a good chance to win that game. If your pitching is anywhere decent, halfway decent. JP, it's nice to see him have a better game today. He had a rough time in Miami and in Cleveland a little bit. So good to see him, kind of bounce back with a multi-hit day. Cal Raleigh, the big 3-run homer, also walked twice. He looks locked back in, which is huge. And Mitch Garver, 1 for 4, just kind of continues. I believe it's first hit as a catcher today with his single. So,
oh, really?
I believe so. Yeah, just not a ton going on up and down. The bottom third of the lineup today was 1 for 11. Oof.
Yeah. With
7 strikeouts. So really didn't get anything from the bottom of your order today. Just the big 3-run homer. And then JP, finding a way. It was a very weird way to get to 5, but they did it. So overall, it's the offense did their job well enough to win this game, but it was far from a great effort from them.
No, but again, 5 runs, that'll win you a game most nights, especially with this pitching staff, which I know, there's been a lot of discussion about the pitching staff and how much worse it's been on the road compared to at home, but nevertheless. Speaking of George Kirby, really good today. He goes back to the site of probably the worst moment of his young career last year. I'm sure we all remember his post-game comments after he came back out and what was it, the 8th inning of that game, and said he didn't want to be out there and seemed pretty bitter about the situation and all that. And then he came out today and shoved 6 innings pitch, just the 1 earned run on a weird play, but just 4 hits allowed, 7 strikeouts, no walks. And I believe I saw a stat today. Hold on, let me pull this up on Twitter. George Kirby's last 6 starts, 37 innings pitched, 1.70 ERA, 39 strikeouts to just 3 walks. That comes from @JHeyKid on Twitter. So Kirby, really good today. What did you make of his start?
Yeah, it was kind of I don't want to say old school approach from George, but it was pretty fastball heavy today. 62% fastball, 40% 4-seamer, 22% 2-seamer. Actually got a really good 4-seam fastball. He got 35% whiff rate on that pitch, 6 whiffs on 17 swings. The slider was also really good. It wasn't a big swing and miss pitch for him, but the max exit velo on that ball was 81.7 miles an hour. So only a 25% whiff rate. You want better than that. 29% called strike plus whiff. Not great, not terrible. But he didn't give up any hard hits on that slider. So it was a really good companion pitch today. Only threw 6 splits, which is interesting, but he did get 2 whiffs on 3 swings there. So 67% whiff rate on the splitter, and threw in some knuckle curves as well. He threw 6 of them, got 5 swings actually, 2 whiffs on that pitch, 1 ball put in play on that pitch. It was hard hit. It stayed out of the zone pretty well, 53% zone percentage. So wasn't in the middle of the plate, but he threw enough strikes that he got Tampa to kind of expand. And pretty good job by Garver. The strike zone was a little bit wide today at times. And Garver,
he also threw out Caballero trying to steal a base.
Yep, sure did. So overall, 87 pitches, 46 swings, 13 whiffs, 11 called strikes, 28% called strike plus whiff. Nothing, electric. It's not like we haven't seen George do this before and been better than this before, but still pretty darn solid. He goes 6 innings, gives up just the 4 hits, no walks, 7 strikeouts. Did fall into a couple of 3-0 counts. So with the way that the walks have gone in this entire series, it's a little concerning that the walks, that he fell behind so quickly, but George is able to throw strikes. We know we should feel really good that Kirby can throw strikes when he needs to. And he did today. Like I said, 53%, zone rate. That's not too bad. That's about where you want him. But he was able to throw quality strikes when he needed to, and then he was able to expand the zone a little bit in this game. And he was able to throw a nice little ball game for Seattle and give them some innings, which they need.
They absolutely needed innings, and that's what made Luis Castillo's outing so disappointing last night because of the what happened in Game 1 with Brian Wu having to exit early and them having to use so much of their bullpen in that game. Really, really nice outing from George Kirby today as he continues to stay hot over his last 6 starts. So let's talk some injury news. We'll talk about Luke Raley, and we'll talk about our concerns with Andres Munoz a little bit more here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners postgame show is once again brought to you by Tax Network USA, as well as PrizePicks. Here on Locked On Mariners, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000. That's 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked-on. See the link in this episode description. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And even though the finals are over, the hoops action doesn't stop on PrizePicks. Women's basketball is still heating up with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside greats like Breanna Stewart and Asia Wilson. You can win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Once again, you can catch the M's and the Twins over the course of the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast of SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. So real quick on Luke Raley, who was scratched from the lineup shortly before the game. He has a sore shoulder, according to Scott Service. Thank you to Ryan Devish and Shannon Dreyer for sharing that information on Twitter. He tried it out, tested it out during batting practice, and it just didn't loosen up. Scott's hoping that the day off tomorrow will help him recover from that, and hopefully he's able to get back into the lineup on Friday or Saturday. So it doesn't seem like too huge of a deal there on Raley, who, of course, has been one of the Mariners' more consistent hitters this year. That would obviously be a pretty big loss if he had to miss any sort of extended period of time. But let's talk about Andres Munoz. So I don't think, we're recording this as like Scott's doing his post-game appearance with the media and all that. So I don't think he mentioned anything about Munoz in terms of an injury or anything, but we know that he's been dealing with this back issue for a while. And obviously he comes out today, has no feel for any of his pitches. His arm side fastballs are missing a ton. His sliders are in the dirt. His velocity is all over the place. And he obviously walks 2 guys, hits a batter. It wasn't good. And he was even talking to the trainer in the dugout after he was pulled. So clearly he didn't feel right. Do they just need to bite the bullet and put him on the IL? I know you can't really afford it with the state of this bullpen right now, but for the long-term sake of this team, this bullpen, and Andres Munoz himself, do you think that's the right decision?
Yeah, it's tough to say because, so much of this, he was really good, in his previous out. Since he's come back, he was really good until today. So, it's kind of a difficult thing to maneuver right now. You are going to have some off days coming up, so that's good. You have a Thursday, you have tomorrow off, and you have the Monday off. And then you have the Monday after that off. And so, you do have some off days built in a little bit to kind of help you with that. But it's tough to say. It really is tough to say because, again, he was really good until today. And so I don't know if it was injury related, but the fact that he was only throwing 93 tells me that there was at least something. It was either his back tightened up on him or whatever. So I don't know if it's necessarily you need to put him on the IL or you need him to sit for a couple of days. I don't know. Either way, it's not great. And I also don't know that if you put him on the IL for 2 weeks, that that's going to fix anything. Like, is that going to make it more likely that he's going to be able to pitch all year without pain?
Right.
Probably not.
Well, and that's probably what they've determined here. Because they've been so cautious with their players this year for the most part that you'd think even with the state of the bullpen that they would just do it, especially this early on in the season if they felt that time on the IL would help him recover. But, we don't know. We're not there. We're not in the training room. We're not in the clubhouse. We don't really know, and we don't really know what the extent of Munoz's injury is. and we don't know what goes into those conversations and those decisions ultimately. But from the outside looking in, it's just, if this is going to continue to be a problem, I do wonder if maybe putting him on the IL would help, because you need him. You need him.
Yeah.
You absolutely need him. Like, he is. I think you can make a pretty strong argument, and it's very rare to do this with any reliever, but I think you can make a pretty strong argument for how much he's meant to this bullpen with the current state that it's in, and with how many close games this team plays. He's the MVP of the team right now.
Right. The bullpen right now is barely surviving with him. So yeah, it's a little tough now. Again, we'll say that Ryan Stanek has been pretty good recently. Had another good outing today.
Yep.
So obviously Stanek's stepped up, and Thornton for the most part has been really solid. So is both. So you want to give those guys the appropriate credit, but right now those guys are already pitching in roles they have no business pitching in because they're kind of being forced to by circumstance. You don't want to ask them to do, step up even more than you have to. So is a trip to the IL, is that going to, just reset Munoz's back and he'll be good to go for the rest of the year? Then if they felt that, they'd probably do it. But this feels like something that's going to be chronic. It feels like it's something that's going to be a day-to-day thing. You're just going to have to manage it. And maybe there's a time where he has to get another, was it cortisone shot or whatever in his back, and he has to sit for a couple days while that does its thing. Maybe that just has to be part of it right now. But I think if the Mariners thought that a 2-week trip to the IL was just going to reset everything for him, I think they would do it. And it doesn't mean that they don't think they might have to do it at some point anyways. But if you're not at that point, why force it? Like, you're just kind of in a tough spot with him. But This is why, hopefully Gregory Santos is on the road to recovery, and he's going to throw a simulated game tomorrow or Friday. And then if that goes well, he'll go out on his rehab assignment. So maybe he joins you, before the All-Star break in Los Angeles or in San Diego. That would help a ton. And it would also, like a situation like today, you're not even thinking about using Munoz because you're up by 4. Who cares? We'll use somebody else. So it's they're in a real tough spot with Andres. They have to be careful and cautious, but they also have to think about the team. They also have to think about, is this actually going to help him, or are we just going to be without a guy for 2 weeks and he's going to have the same problem once he comes back?
Right.
It's kind of a juggling act you have to do.
Right. Yeah. Because if it's just something that he's going to have to deal with for the whole year, then I understand why they haven't put him on the IL. But again, from the outside looking in, you need Andres Munoz, and you need to do whatever you can to make sure that you have Andres Munoz for the most important parts of the season. So, he's been that critical to this team's success this year, which again it's rare to say about one singular reliever who's going to impact, 60, 70 innings of an entire 162 game season. But that's how good he's been, and that's at least partly due to just injuries and, Santos and Brash and now Spire, Saucedo for a little bit, but they need Andres. They absolutely need him. Yeah.
Because Spire's not back before the All-Star break. It probably Santos isn't going to be back before the All-Star break. Maybe they can get him into that last road trip before the All-Star break, but he's not going to be, ready to impact your bullpen until the second half. And same goes for Spire. And we don't even know if Spire is going to be ready right after the All-Star break. Yeah. So bullpen's in a little bit of rough shape. Obviously, they get to carry an extra arm for a week or so because Woo's on the IL, unfortunately. Yep. I guess the good news there, it's not arm related. So I guess that's the good news there. But yeah, because of the off days coming up, I assume Castillo will just start on Sunday in Brian Woo's spot. And so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But they are going to get to carry an extra bullpen man if they want to. They could also just call up Hancock and have Hancock start on Sunday and give Castillo the extra day's rest and all that. So we'll see how they manage their pitching staff for the next couple weeks, but they do have a couple off days. They have one tomorrow, one on Monday, and then the next one's the Monday after that. So they can kind of, maneuver this. They can go one turn through the rotation without relying on, a number a true number 5 starter like Hancock, but they might just want to pull that trigger, right, and give everybody else the extra day's rest too.
Right. That spot in the rotation is set up for the last game of the Twins series, so we'll see how they handle that. But at least that spot doesn't come up in the Baltimore series, which is going to be huge. That also might play a role into how they want to deploy things there. Maybe they want Castillo to face Baltimore, right? And that would entail starting Hancock in that third game.
Right. You want Castillo on normal rest against Minnesota, or do you want Castillo on an extra day's rest against Baltimore?
Right. Yeah. So we'll see what they decide. But again, big homestand. And they're going to have to play better ball than they did on, this road trip, of course. But at least this road trip is over. It's finally done. Adios. And they won't be going on the road again until San Diego and Anaheim before the All-Star break. So going to be a nice lengthy homestand where obviously they played significantly better, and hopefully they're able to stack up some wins against some pretty tough opponents. But we'll talk about that in a future episode. But for now, that is going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Dan Gonzalez. And Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.